What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are breaking down the buy low players that I think you should target in trades because I believe that they will bounce back. Obviously this week we haven't had a lot of hockey. We had the All-Star game, the All-Star skills comp, and there's a lot of things to talk about. I'm going to be making a video in the next 2 days on new must-add players, and I'm also going to be making a playoff schedule video sometime within this week. So stay tuned for that, but for this video, buy low players, let's get into it. All right, guys, we have 14 players on this list. This isn't going to be the longest video. I just want to give you guys a little bit of information about these players and why I think they are good trade targets. This is not related to playoff schedule whatsoever, so if you're on top of the leaderboards and you're really just trying to maximize your games, then maybe some of these guys might not be the best options. I'll cover the playoff schedule sometime this week, like I said, but still, if you're in the hunt for the playoffs or you're trying to get some elite talent that you can get a good deal on, these players are good options. I also wanted to mention that some of these players are injured, so if you're in the battle for a playoff spot, you're trying to make it to the playoffs, trading for injured players isn't going to be ideal. But if you're in a comfortable spot in the standings, then trading for injured players could really pay off. Guys like Jack Hughes, Jack Eichel, etc. So let's start it off. Number one, Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils. We just learned that Jack Hughes is close to returning. He didn't participate in the All-Star game. However, he should be back probably within the next 2 weeks. Jack Hughes is an elite player. You guys saw in the first month, he was breaking records left and right. Obviously, there is some issues with the Devils. They have some injuries, like Dougie Hamilton doesn't help their offense. But when Jack Hughes is healthy, he's an absolute beast. And if you can make a deal for Jack Hughes, who's a top 5 player in fantasy hockey, it could really pay off when you need him the most in your fantasy playoffs. The next player I want to talk about is John Tavares of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But before we talk about him, I want to tell you guys to head on over to Drafters Fantasy Sports. If you guys want to do pick'ems on the NFL, NHL, and more, you can do this, and I have an amazing promo code for you. Promo code FIREDUP gets you 100% match deposit up to $100, minimum deposit $20. So 20 gets you 40, 100 gets you 200. This is the best promo code on there currently. I think when you go on, they have a promo code in there already called Welcome50. That only gives you a 50% match deposit. So make sure you guys use promo code FIREDUP. If you look right here, you guys can do pick'ems. It's available in Ontario too. I forgot to mention that. Not a lot of these daily fantasy sports apps are available in Ontario, so make sure you guys head on over to Drafters Fantasy Sports. If you guys are looking here, this is how pick'ems work. You can take a number of player props, combine them together, and then there's a stakes multiplier. So each time you do a leg, 6 times, 10 times, 20 times, lots of money to potentially be made. Personally, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a fantastic game. I'm taking his over on passing yards. I think Kittle is the best tight end in the NFL, at least a top 3 tight end. I think he's going to have over 4 receptions. And then maybe I'll take the under on Christian McCaffrey rushing yards, guys. I mean, the Chiefs have such a good run defense. I pair this all together. If I just want to put, $20, that is going to be a $120 payout, guys. So again, use promo code FIREDUP. It's an amazing deal. Have some fun, gamble responsibly, and making bets on the Super Bowl is a lot of fun. So make sure you use promo code FIREDUP on Drafters Fantasy Sports. All right, now let's talk about John Tavares, guys. This one's pretty simple to me. His shooting percentage is extremely low, 7.5% compared to a 12.8% career rate. He's still in the top 6 playing alongside elite players and on the first line power play. So I think Tavares is going to bounce back. You can get a pretty good deal on him right now, so send out some trades and see if it works out. Next, we got the man in the thumbnail. It is Brandon Montour of the Florida Panthers. I've talked about this guy so much in previous videos on my Twitter at FiredUpFantasy. Make sure you give me a follow. And it's pretty simple to me, guys. Montour is still getting elite deployment. He's getting around the same ice time per game as last season, a little bit less, like 30 seconds less, but he's still getting over 23 minutes per game. He's taken a lot of shots and shot attempts recently. And he has a really low shooting percentage. So this one's a no-brainer to me. I think he has just been rusty since returning from that surgery that he had. He didn't play hockey for a long time. The Panthers have one of the best power plays in the NHL. They're an elite offensive team. So buy low on Brandon Montour, especially at the defensive position, which is so scarce in fantasy hockey. I think he's going to pop off after this All-Star break, and I think you are going to regret dropping him or not picking him up if he is available. Next, we got Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I do think Kyle Connor is due for some regression. He started off really hot to start the year. However, we have to look at the last couple of games. He has 1 goal in his last 5 games since returning from I think he sprained his MCL or something like that. And yeah, he's just been rusty since returning from his injury. So maybe some people that own Kyle Connor are a little bit panicked about him. Maybe they think he can't come back to those heights that he had earlier on in the season, and you could get a good deal for him. Next up, we have Tim Stützle of the Ottawa Senators. I know people are going to comment saying, hey, Stützle is on the PP2. What are you saying? You shouldn't buy low in Stützle. It's over. No, guys, Tim Stützle is still an elite player. If you're looking at his 5v5 metrics, if you're looking at his primary assists, this guy is an elite player. And if you're looking at his shooting percentage, 8.5% compared to a 13% career rate, he is due to bounce back. And there's another positive thing about Tim Stützle, right? This is the fact that the Senators are fully healthy now. Shane Pinto's healthy. Josh Norris is back. They finally have a healthy lineup. Shabbat's healthy. Chikrin's healthy. Sanderson did just get injured, but I think it's only day-to-day, so cross our fingers. But I think the Sens have the ability to bounce back, and they have the ability to improve their power play. So I think Tim Stützle is an amazing buy low option. Next up, we have Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers. The reason that he's a buy low candidate is because in the last month, he hasn't been that amazing, okay? In the first 2 or 3 months, he was absolutely elite. He was like a top 25 player in fantasy, but he has cooled down. Regression did hit. Now, I think you can get him for a good deal, and he has the potential to win you weeks, you know, being in this Edmonton Oilers offense and on that first-line power play, quarterback in that first-line power play. This is one of my favorite buy low targets if you can get a good deal for him, and it should pay off. Next up, we have Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. And listen, guys, I understand that I've included him in every single one of my buy low videos, but I'm sorry to break it to you, I still believe in Ovi, okay? His shot percentage is 6% compared to a 12.8% career rate. He's still getting elite deployment, especially on that power play, which has improved a little bit. And yeah, I just feel like you can get a really good deal for him. So if you can make a good deal for Ovechkin, there's a lot of upside here. Next up, we have Jordan Kyrou of the St. Louis Blues. Obviously, Kyrou, his value was lower earlier on in the season. He started off really slow, and he has bounced back recently. However, I still think there's room for him to bounce back, which is why he's on this list. He has an 8.9% shooting percentage compared to a 12.6% career rate. He's basically fixed on that first line with Pavel Buchnevich and Robert Thomas versus Coach Berube had him on the second line. So this is good for his deployment, for his overall fantasy value, and he is on the first line power play as well. So I think Kyrou, if you're looking at, last season, he had a really good second half. I think there is upside here and there is potential for him to pop off. So maybe trade for him and see if it works out. At number 9, we have Kevin Fiala of the Los Angeles Kings. Fiala's been solid this year, but he hasn't been as good as last season. Last season, he was an over point per game player. The reason I think you should buy low in Kevin Fiala is because, listen, I know this isn't, stats or numbers, but second half Fiala is a man that you do not want to mess with, okay? In the last couple of years, Fiala has popped off in the second half of the season. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe there is something to it. I don't know. That is one reason to trade for Kevin Fiala. We also have a new coach. Todd McClellan was fired, so usually we like to see a bump from the new coach involved. It gets the guys going. And then also, Victor Arvidsson is skating. There is a chance that he returns in the next couple of weeks, and that will help the Los Angeles Kings offense. So with all this being considered, Kevin Fiala, in my opinion, is a great buy low candidate. At number 10, we have Alexander Barkov of the Florida Panthers. Barkov's been great this year, but if you're looking at his goal scoring, it's probably the worst in the last couple of seasons. He has an 8.9% shooting percentage compared to a 13.5% career rate. He's playing in an elite offense on an elite power play, and I think he will start scoring more goals soon. With that being said, trade for Barkov, and I think it could pay off. At number 11, we have Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. Now listen, Jason Robertson has been really good in the last couple of weeks. However, if you're looking at macro, he hasn't been as good as last season, right? He put up 109 points last season. What I like about Jason Robertson recently is that he's taking a lot of shots. That was something I was really concerned about earlier on the season. He wasn't taking a lot of shots. However, he's taking more shots, he's getting more ice time, and they have a new first line of Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston that's playing really well. Hopefully their power play can start to improve a little bit more, but I do think there's a lot of potential with Jason Robertson to pop off in the second half. Also, shooting percentage, 11.6% compared to a 14.9% career rate. Yes, this could be regression. We don't have the biggest sample size, but there is room there for him to start scoring more goals. I think he will. So buy low in Jason Robertson. At number 12, we have Jack Eichel of the Vegas Golden Knights. And listen, you're really only going to want to trade for Jack Eichel if you are in a comfortable spot in your standings, right? If you're fighting to make the playoffs, then Jack Eichel might not be the best target. If we're looking at the prognosis and the timeline of Jack Eichel, he should be back sometime early to mid-March, right when your fantasy playoffs are about to start. So if you can get a good deal, with a frustrated owner who might be trying to make it to the playoffs, this really could pay off in the long run. At number 13, we have another Vegas Golden Knight, and that Golden Knight is defenseman Shea Theodore. We got confirmation about 2 weeks ago that he was going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. So with that timeline given, he should be back within the next 2 weeks. This is great news, right? When he returns, he might be a little bit rusty, but come fantasy playoffs, he should be back to his normal self. When Shea Theodore was healthy earlier on in the season, he was an absolute beast. He's on the first line power play, super talented defenseman. He's a top pairing defenseman, getting a lot of minutes. So I think if you can get a good deal for him, it could pay off. At number 14, we have Valeri Nichushkin of the Colorado Avalanche. As you guys know, Nichushkin was put in the player assistance program. He's been out for about a month now, I believe. We don't know the timeline of when he is going to return, so this might be a little bit risky, but when Nichushkin was healthy, he was an absolute beast. So this is a high risk, high reward situation. If you're comfortable with your standings, then yes, this has the ability to really help you come the fantasy playoffs. You're going to have to see what the price is for Nichushkin, what you can get for him, but if you can get a really good deal for him, and like I said, you're, top 2 teams in your league, I think you should trade for him and see if it works out. The last player that I think is a great buy low target is Andrei Svechnikov of the Carolina Hurricanes. Svechnikov is currently injured. He's missed about 5 or 6 games in a row, but we just saw in practice today that he is skating in a yellow no contact jersey. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see, how they update us on his injury timeline, but he probably should be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. If I were to take a guess, for me, Svechnikov is super talented, especially in category leagues or leagues that heavily value shots, hits, and blocks. And I think, some owners that have Svechnikov might be a little bit frustrated with how injury prone he's been all season, and they might be able to just ship him off for pennies. So try to get a good deal for Svechnikov, and I think come fantasy playoffs, it could really work out. Lastly, I just wanted to highlight a couple of sell high players. Obviously, you might not be able to get the most for these players, and I'm not saying that these players are going to fall off a cliff completely in fantasy, but in general, I just think that their production is not sustainable. So if you can trade them away for something that is a little bit better, I think you should. The first player I want to talk about is Matt Duchene. He's having a fantastic season, but there are 2 glaring issues that I have with Matt Duchene. He has a high shooting percentage right now at 17% compared to a 13% career rate, and his deployment isn't that good. He's not on the first line power play. He's not getting like 17, 18 minutes a night. I just don't think he's going to be able to keep up the pace that he's on, which is like something like 70 to 75 points. I think he will cool down, and I think this is probably the highest value that he will have. So trade him away, and hopefully you can get something a little bit better. Next, I'll just do this rapid fire. We have Lucas Raymond. He has a slightly high shooting percentage, but what I really don't like about Raymond is that he doesn't take a lot of shots. The Red Wings are running their power play split in terms of time. I don't like that at all for fantasy. And if you're looking at his advanced metrics, they just don't scream sustainable to me. So yeah, not a fan of Raymond. Igor Sharangovich. I like Sharangovich in terms of adding him if he's available. That ship is probably sailed at this point because he's no longer a secret. But the issue that I have is that his shooting percentage is 19.2% compared to a 14.2% career rate. They just lost Elias Lindholm, so their first line center is now Nazem Kadri. I just don't think that some of his production is sustainable, so sell high. We also got Charlie Coyle. Coyle, another great player to add if he's available, but that ship is probably sailed as well. But my problem is that his shooting percentage is extremely high at 18%. He has an 11.2% career rate. His goal scoring will cool down, and he will cool down for sure. Finally, we have Ivan Barbashev. Barbashev, his shooting percentage is pretty in line with how he normally plays. He tends to have a high shooting percentage, but for me, I just really don't like his deployment. Even with all the injuries that they've had, he's still getting like 14, 15 minutes. I'm just not a fan of, players that get lower than 15 minutes per game. So, with this recent hot streak, maybe you can trade him away for someone that's going to be a little bit more consistent. I know I usually do my week guide videos today, but because of the All-Star break, week 17 was 2 weeks. So if you want to look at the schedule for this week, just check out my week 17 guide video that I posted about a week ago. It covers the streamers that you should add post All-Star break. That should be really useful. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.